Everyone, welcome. We apologize for this audio small issue. We are very happy to have you today. I hope everyone is hearing me well. If you can just confirm to see if everything is fine on the chat, that would be nice. Wonderful, thank you. Well, welcome to day one of the Virtual Island Summit 2023. Thank you so much for joining this session. My name is Audrey Joachim. I am the Director of Business Development at Island Innovation, and I'm currently based in Guadeloupe Islands in the Caribbean. I am very happy to be presenting the Island Story session of today titled Scaling Innovation for Impact, ESG and Green Development of SIDS. Environment, social, governance, ESG policy has become a new opportunity for development for islands communities. In this session, you will learn how islanders can leverage ESG for sustainable development and green growth. But before we begin, you should see a poll that will appear on your screen now. Please let us know where you're connecting from and the sector and industry you belong to. It should just be in your screen just right now. So I'm Audrey, I'm based in the Caribbean. We are in the private sector here, and we believe in sustainable development. I invite you to use the chat function to introduce yourself and where you're coming from as well. And use it as well to make any comments, question you may have during the session. But just be sure to use the Q&A function on your menu for your question. And we'll do our best to make sure that they are addressed as many as possible at the end of the session. I guess I will see very soon the results of the poll. I see here in the chat, Cabo Verde Islands, hi Sibel, hi, I see Hawaii, and we have the results. We have 45% from the Caribbean, 21 North America, 12 from Europe. All right, lots of you are coming from the NGO sector, 23%, 44 in the private sector, and I see environmental services and ocean conservation, nice, in the industry you belong to. Again, thank you for joining. How islands can leverage ESG for sustainable development and green growth. To answer these questions, I'm more than happy to introduce you to our speaker today and invitee, Marcelo Cabral, Chief Scalability, Knowledge and Impact at the IDB Lab at the Inter-American Development Bank. Hi, Marcelo. How are you?
How you doing? I'm doing fine. Greetings from DC.
Thank you for joining us today.
On the contrary.
Can you briefly introduce yourself to our guests, please?
Of course. I'm going to start from the institutional introduction. As you know, the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, it's one of the largest, if not the largest, development institutions for Latin America and the Caribbean. We have presence in 26 countries in the region, and we are well known for helping governments with development projects. We are less known for working with the private sector, actually, to push development and to ensure that we have a good development pattern. So I work on the lab side of the bank, which is actually the part that deals with supporting entrepreneurs, startups, and investors in early stages, actually, and with a high risk profile, looking at innovation. And I'm going to tell you more about this, working on poor and vulnerable. That's the high level institutional presentation. On my side, my title is very self-explanatory, but it's important for the work that we do. With my team, what we ensure is that each time we look at an opportunity, we look at scalable projects, and that's not easy in when you're taking high risk, but that's our mandate. And by scaling, I mean either with the rest of the group, with the rest of the IDB group, or with other partners. And then impact, measuring risk and understanding whether we're failing or not. It's also a good part of what I do. So I'm very familiar with risk, taking risk and failing. And last but not least, knowledge. In this area, especially in early entrepreneurial system, there's not enough knowledge to be able to do better what we are supposed to do. So that's what I do, and that's what the lab is trying to achieve every day here.
That's great. Thank you, Marcelo, for this introduction. I think that sets the tone and the context of our discussion today. So tell me, you introduced briefly what is the IDB Lab, the Inter-American Development Bank, but can you provide an overview of the IDB Lab's mission and its role within the bank group, and particularly in fostering innovation and inclusive growth, I believe, in the Latin America and in the Caribbean?
Yeah. The introduction that I just made gives me the platform to tell you a little bit more about the specific of what we do. But let me give you another very important headline. As we work with early stage entrepreneurs and their solutions, we have a unique value proposition, which is how does those solutions could eventually affect the poor and vulnerable in our continent. And this is unique because as we look at these innovations, we look at what it can be done in terms of fostering the lot of those that have the least in terms of access to social services, financial inclusion, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing. And the other thing that we do is we are trying to advance topics that the rest of the IDB group still is not there, or the development institutions are still not there. Let me give you an example. We are working now with silver economy. That is to say, the issue that we have an aging population in the Caribbean, by the way, too, okay? And the public services are still not there in terms of the quality of the services that they should be provided. That's a challenge, but it's also, as they say, an opportunity in the sense of providing, new avenues for the private sector to actually be profitable and serve this kind of population and these social issues. So as you can see, we do things that are in the present and things that we do in the future. Now, talking about the present, we do work with the specific development challenges. And our verticals essentially are financial inclusion, health, talent and employment, agriculture and climate change, and essential services such as energy and transportation. Those are the 5 verticals. But within each of the verticals, what we are constantly looking at, it's at specific development problems. I'll give you an example very quickly. When we talk about talent and employment, and especially for the Caribbean, this is super important. We are looking at what happened with those students that actually finished secondary education. They didn't have access, they don't have access to higher education, and that we need to train and retrain constantly. So we're looking at how we can use technologies, above all, to actually solve the problem of those that are not really in higher education just yet, but they have problems accessing the labor market. So it's 110 million people in Latin America and the Caribbean in that situation, and we're trying to work on market solutions with a social stamp that can actually solve those kind of problems.
Interesting. That makes you jumps to your background when you talk about social markets and social impact. Your background includes expertise in artificial intelligence and its ethical application. So is there a way, how does AI play a role in the work of IDB Lab from what you just described, and what ethical considerations are taken into account? It's a big topic, I guess, the AI.
Yeah, Audrey, let me give you again the big picture here, because this is something that is always controversial in the development world. We believe that technology is what it will allow us to be scalable, to be impactful, and to learn very quickly. It's very difficult to get away from that conversation. So the issue of the widespread use of technology to leapfrog solutions is something that we are focusing all the time. In that quest, we've been focusing mostly on blockchain and Web3, and I can talk more about that, but also on artificial intelligence. And the issue of artificial intelligence being a development institution is not only a question of the application of the technology, is what you get applying that technology. And remember that I told you at the beginning that we are focusing on poor and vulnerable. We are sitting on the most unequal region of the world. So we think that, our first mission here is not to include technology, or to include technology in a way that doesn't make that problem even worse than it is today. So that's the first thing that I want to tell you. Technology, but technology for inclusion, and that's an important ethical consideration. Now, ethical considerations are much more than that. And let's talk about artificial intelligence a little bit more now. We are looking at a lot of opportunities out there that are including artificial intelligence. Issue of privacy, issues of data management, issue of transparency of the models that they use, and the decisions that will be made with those models are what we're trying to work on every day. How do we do it? Because that's a big undertaking. So we're ensuring that, first of all startups out there that we work in partnership, which are many, that are going to use artificial intelligence, even if it's ChatGPT or whatever they're going to be using in terms of technology. We're trying to ensure that from the very beginning they have a blueprint for the ethical use of those models. We look at ethical use in 3 different levels. The solution that they're proposing at the business level. Okay, mm-hmm. So I mean, do we need really in the market what they are proposing, and how we can actually be sure that the solution fits the needs of the market? So that's a business issue. The second issue is a technology issue. So we have actually technical assistance for startups to be able to understand and manage even better what they're trying to do on the technology side. And last but not least, we have a society level. And the society level is to understand, or to try to understand with the entire ecosystem of those startups, what kind of redistributional consequences will have the use of technology. Or better said, what opportunities for a better distribution of opportunities and income those technologies can actually bring to the table. So we do that for startups. We're doing that also for VCs. All our VCs or venture capital funds that we're working on, that we're working in partnership, are at this moment applying this tool. And we do that, of course, for our own portfolio, that kind of stuff. So it needs to be practical, this kind of approach. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to influence one startup and one investor at a time to be ethical in the use of technologies in general, especially artificial intelligence.
That made me think, you mentioned that you are working with young entrepreneurs, early stage entrepreneurs as well. So I guess it's about supporting at the very early stage to also educate or provide solution for a good environment. So from what I understand, the IDB Lab focuses on mobilizing, financing, knowledge, and connection for those early stage entrepreneurial solutions. So do you have some success stories of example of projects that had a significant impact or on economy or social inclusion in the region, following all you just described here?
Yeah. The success stories are transformation stories. And this is important because, again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to improve the lot of these entrepreneurs that actually sometimes have, as you said, not only a problem of accessing financing, but also connections and knowledge, two things that you need to have in order to be a successful entrepreneur. So let me give you an example. We are working with a telehealth company in Haiti. Okay, the telehealth company is trying to now improve their model to move into an artificial intelligence prediction model that will allow them to optimize what they're trying to achieve. Okay, so what we done essentially with them is we were hand in hand for them to improve their models, to improve their fit. And now what we have now, it's a better work of connecting patients with providers, a better way of actually certifying the capacity of the providers to provide the option, and also to differentiate their fees in terms of the capacity to pay of the population they're working on. This is very difficult in Haiti, don't get me wrong. But what we're trying to do essentially is we're trying to improve what is already there, okay? And what we're getting now, it's like we had in the last 3 months, 1,200 new pairs of services that actually are a much better fit in terms of how we can do that for the entire health system of Haiti. So we're working now, and this is the point that I want to make, we're working this to make it, in a way that this startup can actually serve the public sector, okay, eventually. And we're working now with the public sector of the bank to ensure that they can be able to procure and insert that kind of solutions. That's what we do in every country, but that's one issue and one solution. We're also working quite a bit in Jamaica, for example. In Jamaica, what we've done essentially, we've been supporting the creation of an ecosystem of investment, not only one startup, but the entire ecosystem, through acceleration and through a fund that actually allows startup companies to come up with their ideas, but also to scale them up. And there we have more than 1,000 companies that are already part of the program, that starting to spread their wings and work in the rest of the Caribbean and the rest of the region with their solutions. So those are the kind of work that we do in terms of success stories. We have plenty of unsuccessful stories. Okay, and,
Yes.
and the issue of unsuccessful stories is that they are good not only to learn, but also to keep our methodologies and approaches fresh. A lot of ideas that we have that might work, that don't work, we can renew and we can make it even better the next time. So there is a feedback, a positive feedback, believe it or not, on unsuccessful stories, and we have many of them, as I told you.
And you thank you for reminding this. Of course, there are. I guess that's a life story that we learn also from failures or what we can call failures. But I think you talked about Haiti, and there is a special social situation in Haiti that probably makes things more challenging. Mm-hmm. And from what I could see on the IDB Lab, how do you address, those outside criteria such as the climate crisis, gender diversity gaps that are present in some island territories such as Haiti or others, or how do you address this to contribute to sustainability and inclusivity?
In the big picture, we have targets for each of these topics. We have targets for gender, we have targets for inclusion, we have targets for climate financing and climate infrastructure. So we do have specific targets that we need to achieve every year with our projects. I'll give you an example. We have at least 60% of our projects, they need to be geared towards gender topics. Okay, so when we go, we select there, when we discover our investments, we need to have that lenses in order, and we need to comply with that kind of mandate. Now, as important as the targets is what we learn about the issues of gender, for example. And you know, gender today, if you look at the issues that we are looking at, especially on the entrepreneur side, our focus here is to bring more women to be able to actually come to the market with solutions. So more entrepreneurs on the women's side working on solutions, but especially, and this is a special topic for us, on STEM issues. Because we see that one of the gaps still there on the gender side is the low presence of women founders and women part of founding teams working on entrepreneurial solutions. So that's one topic. One topic that we haven't solved, Audrey, and we are working on, is the issue of diversity. Gender has had much more attention lately in the last 10 years, but diversity is still a relatively nascent issue. Only last year, we were able for the first time to support our first venture fund working specifically to find founders that come from diverse populations. Okay, so that was the first time in the history, in our 30-year history, that we found that kind of solution. There's still a lot to do on the diversity issue. If you look at the companies and you look at how they do environmental analysis, gender analysis, and diversity analysis, what we see is that they have the tools, okay, but they don't know how to apply it sometimes. So we're working a lot to ensure that they have the tools to do the analysis for those kind of factors, and that they apply that when they implement their models properly.
I'm conscious of time, and I see people ask quite some interesting questions here. I see someone that asked the metrics. So I was looking at someone who asked, interesting to hear on the issue of aging population in the Caribbean, new avenues for being explored for profitability. Can you expand on this? I guess, what is the future probably of aging populations and opportunities?
The first thought that comes to mind when you talk about silver economy or aging population is health-related issues. So let's talk about that. You know, retirement and health. So there is many companies, especially in other countries in Latin America, we are trying to bring them to the Caribbean as well, that are working with issues of health inclusion and social protection for the aging population. But that's not our focus now. Our focus now is to increase the spectrum of possibilities. We are looking at companies that actually work on providing education for aging population, providing employment opportunities for aging population. I know that that's not the first thing that comes to mind, but we need to start changing our mindset, okay? And we are looking also at specific, and this is important for the Caribbean, at specific opportunities in the tourism sector and on the financial inclusion sector. Those are two things that we're looking at as well. So that's the way we're looking about silver economy. What we are looking at also is at linking solutions that are already happening in countries that are the oldest in Latin America and the Caribbean, or the oldest, by the way, in Europe, with solutions in our own countries. And so this is important for the IDB Lab as well. We try to go to, for example, Europe, Spain, Switzerland. We're working with a lot of countries there, and also Israel, in the solutions that they have for aging populations and how they work in promoting not only, again, the care, but also the promotion of their possibilities moving forward. We're going to live longer, and the public sector will have serious constraints, and you know about fiscal constraints in all the situations out there in the public sector to provide solutions. And also the rate of, talk about artificial intelligence, the rate of innovation that will happen cannot come only from the public sector.
Mhm. Interesting. So how, I think that what we saw there is more private sector present today in that session. So for our audience that would like to reach out to you, what they should come with? I see there is quite some questions who are interesting to know from yourself, if that angle or key indicators performance are okay for their business. So I won't go into the details, but my main question here is, what are your criteria, Marcelo? You must receive a lot of applications. So what would you recommend to the person who are listen to us to come to you? There is some work to do, just before to come to you and submit a project.
We have in every country in Latin America and the Caribbean, we have at least one person that is dedicated to actually do the discovery process. That is to say, to find opportunities for us to invest on. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do is just you have to go to the website, go to the country office of the IDB, or directly to our website, the IDB Lab website, that is the central website, the headquarters website, and just leave your name and your idea there, and we will contact you. So we are very, very fast at doing that. Once we have your idea, one of our officials will, specialists will contact you and talk about a little bit more about the topic. The issue of having local people working on that is that they know the market, they know the solution, and they probably know you already. Especially in small countries, we probably know you. So reaching out is the first thing that you have to do. Then there is a fitness conversation. And the fitness conversation is about what kind of maturity you have in your idea, because we do have a full spectrum of instruments to provide. We provide grants, but also we provide recovery or recovery grants. That is to say, grants in which we recover only if you do well. But we also have equity, we also have loans, and we also have investment in venture funds that can actually be of interest to you. That is to say, an indirect investment. So the second thing that we do is we see your fitness. And then we start the process of actually delivering a product or an operation that might support the idea, okay?
Okay, well, thank you for those answers. I'm very sorry for everyone who has so many questions. I will probably not be able to answer, guys, because I see I see Laura who sent her idea about her startup. So please, reach out to follow Marcelo suggestions.
You can reach out to me directly. I can give you my email. There's no problem. Okay.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Marcelo. So, for all those entrepreneurs, some may have ideas, but we know entrepreneurs, they have tons of ideas. So what can you share insight into the challenges or even the opportunities that, come into this current entrepreneurial landscape in Latin America and the Caribbean, and how the IDB Lab also, I guess, share, what are the markets where we should develop our entrepreneur skills in the Latin America and Guadeloupe, and the Caribbean, sorry.
Super good question, Audrey. And I think that I have to start with a reality check, which is, the last 2 years have been challenging in terms of investment. We went from almost $15 billion of investment in entrepreneurship 2 years ago to what we are at today. And today, so far, we're at 6.5. That is to say, almost half of what we used to invest. So the first thing is that you need to be very sharp and differentiate your product very well. So that's the first thing. How do you differentiate your product? Is you need to understand the competitive landscape out there. What I see every day are opportunities of startups in which founders have not had time or they have not paid attention to alternative solutions that are there in the market. And that information is out there. It's relatively easy to get. So first thing is to sharpen your proposition, knowing what your competitive landscape is. Second important thing, knowing your financials, essentially. Understanding that if you're still at a very early stage, you need to be sure that you don't get into conversations that are very advanced in terms of your profile of investment. That is to say, you don't take equity on something that still is not properly developed. So look for grants, look for angel investors, look for equity funds that actually, venture funds that actually have a profile that fits you. The third important thing is to understand your industry, not only your competition, okay? And what are the technology issues in your industry, right? So for example, if you're working on education nowadays, you need to understand what generative AI would do to education. If you don't understand how that's gonna change, probably you're gonna have a very short-lived business, okay? How it's gonna affect the way we prepare lessons, we personalize learning, we personalize teaching opportunities, we personalize curriculum. How do we actually do the grading and the scoring? So you need to understand that kind of industry trends in order to be better positioned. And one last thing that I want to say, you cannot think only locally. There's very few investors today that will only reward you for thinking about your market. Everybody's going to ask you nowadays in a very competitive environment, what other applications in other countries would have. So especially for the Caribbean, regional solutions are what we're looking at.
Thank you very much, Marcelo, for your insights today, and everyone to enjoy to come. We have quite had a really great discussion. Not enough time to cover everything. I see that's very interesting inputs here, Marcelo.
Thank you, Aubrey.
I wish we could have more time, but we'll have to close the session, guys, and thank you a lot for coming to the session. Marcelo gave his.
I left my.
Yes.
As you know, I'm not a Zoom native, but I think that I did a good job just putting my email there. So please reach out to me, and I'm going to be sure to connect you with the right people according to what you have in your hands.
Thank you, Marcelo. Is also available on LinkedIn. We are again very happy to have welcome you today to these Island Stories. We invite you to keep in touch with us on our social networks and our website. We are present in Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and on our website. We are always open and for your feedbacks. So thank you again. Thank you, Marcelo. And we keep in touch, everyone, for the next of the Virtual Island Summit. Thank you very much.